If you're buying a home in Ione, California and waiting for prices to drop or selling and wondering why homes are kind of sitting longer, November's numbers explain both. First, let's look at the broad overview of what's happening in our market, and then I will break down each number as we go along. Here we go. In Ione, there were 32 homes for sale, 7 of which were new listings, 4 closed, and 9 went pending. We were sitting at 60 days on market. The median list price was $580,000, median close price $528,000. The list to close price ratio was 95%. We were sitting at about 8 months of inventory with a 12.5% absorption rate. So I'm going to talk about what each one of these means as we go along here. Now let's talk about everyone's favorite stat, home prices. So we're going to again talk about the median list price, close price, the list to close price ratio, and kind of talk about what that means. So again, the median list price for November of 2025 in Ione, California was $580,000. That's actually up 84% from this time last month of $535,000, but it's only up just almost 2.7%, so almost 3% from this time last year at $565,000. Now, when we're talking about the median close price, we were at $528,000 for November, which is up actually 20% or just over that by 21.1% from $436,000 this time last month. And then we're actually up almost 15% from this time last year of $460,000. Now keep in mind with the list to close price ratio, we're at 95%. That's not talking about the difference between this month's list price and close price. It's actually talking about the homes that closed this month and what their original list price was versus what they closed at. So we're at 95%, which means that sellers were willing to come down in price by about 5% on the original list price of their home. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit into what that means for you as a buyer, seller, and if you're just a homeowner looking to keep yourself updated on what's going on in our market. Okay, so for buyers, this means that you're able to negotiate a little bit more with the seller. As I said, they're willing to come down in price by about 5% from their original list price. For sellers, this means you just need to be very careful with how your pricing strategy that you use and how you position your home from the get-go to make sure it's positioned in its best light. Now for homeowners, I am also seeing what's called buying the listing. This is something that's getting more and more common right now. And I have another video that I explain more in depth what this is that I will share in the comments or the captions below. But essentially it's just where your agent just does whatever pricing strategy you want to use without even having a conversation about numbers and data and what our market's telling us. They're just being your yes man and agreeing to whatever price that you throw out there. So just be aware of it. Check out that video to learn more about this and kind of the pros and cons and why it might not be a good idea to do that with your agent. But this was a strategy that was working 2 to 3 years ago that isn't working in our current market. So now let's talk about what our current market is doing. Okay, so let's talk about what type of market we're in and where we're trending. To look at these numbers, we need to figure out our months of inventory and our absorption rate. So the months of inventory just tells us how long it would take all the homes that are currently on the market to sell based on how quickly they were selling. The absorption rate is telling us how quickly they're actually selling. So as I said earlier, we're sitting at 8 months of inventory, which means we're in a buyer's market. Anything 6 months or above puts us in a buyer's market. 3 to 6 months puts us in a neutral market, and 3 months or below puts us in a seller's market. And for the absorption rate, we're at 12.5%, which means not only are we currently in a buyer's market, but we're also heavily trending into a buyer's market, because anything below 16.67% absorption rate, remember, just think of it like you're absorbing the houses. The houses are being sold. The slower it takes for them to sell, the more we're cooling off into a buyer's market. So for that 12.5 is well below that 16.67. Now, when we're talking about the absorption rate, 16.67 up to 33.33% is a neutral market. And then anything above that 33.33%, meaning it's kind of like a hot market, homes are selling faster, and that's gonna be more beneficial to sellers. And that's how you can kind of think of the absorption rate. So 16.67 or below, that's a buyer's market. 33.33% or higher, that is a seller's market, and right there in the middle is a neutral market. So if this has gotten you really confused, don't worry. I do have a Decoding the Market series that I will also link the introduction to that in this video that will explain it to you, all of these different stats and how they apply to you as a buyer, as a seller, or as a homeowner, so you can be savvy to what, not only just what I'm telling you as a real estate agent, because I know a lot of you guys have, some misconceptions about agents and how we're trying to one-up you or tell you misinformation. This is why I'm being transparent and explaining this to you guys so you understand what I'm talking about when I explain these different stats and you know what we're talking about. It's not just me making up numbers for you. So next, let's talk about the days on market. Now let's talk about a number that we're all used to seeing, which is days on market, or DOM, when we're talking about how long it's taking homes to sell. In November of 2025, it was taking about 60 days for a home to sell on average. That's nearly double what it was a month ago at 25 days on market and 26 days on market this time last year. Another number a lot of people tend to breeze over when talking about days on market is what's called CDOM, or cumulative days on market. I've also heard it called combined days on market, and that's exactly what it is. It's how long a home took to sell, including if it went pending and then back on the market, or if it was canceled and then relisted on the market. The DOM will start over at 0, but the CDOM will continue where it left off. So typically the days on market and the CDOM are pretty much the same, but lately I'm seeing this change more and more. So last month's DOM was 25, as I mentioned previously, but the CDOM was 29. I know that's really not much of a difference, but I will keep an eye on this as we go in through to December to kind of see how that number continues to trend. Now let's talk about everyone's least favorite topic when talking about homes and things is how much is it going to cost you to borrow money? Yep, we're going to be talking about mortgage rates yet again. I know it's kind of the hot topic we've been talking about for a while now, and we're kind of tired of it. But Freddie Mac posts what's called the Primary Mortgage Market Survey, or PMMS, every Thursday. They've been doing this since 1971. So if you want to take a gander, you can see all the market stats and where they've been trending for decades now. But these are just the mortgage rates that they're collecting from thousands of loan applications sent through Freddie Mac's loan processing system. It's called the Loan Product Advisor, or LPA. And that's just a software program that lenders can across the country use to submit applications for conventional conforming loans. So as of November of 2026, the mortgage rate for a 30-year FRM, which is a fixed rate mortgage, was 6.23%. This is down slightly from 6.26% last month and down from 6.81% this time last year. So rates are definitely on the decline, but they're still higher than, kind of what we were hoping for. But it's important to keep in mind that these rates are just based on the Freddie Mac's conforming 30-year conventional loan. This does not take into consideration your what type of loan that you're going to get, your credit, your down payment, and all of the things that can contribute to the total interest rate that you're going to receive on your mortgage. So the best way for you to know kind of where you stand is by talking to a lender. And if you're concerned that you might ding your credit, if you talk to a bunch of lenders to kind of shop rates, I do have some information for you on how to navigate through this. So leave a comment and I will be happy to share that link with you, and I can talk you through that in my video where I share more information on, I totally get this. I've been there myself, so I can help you understand kind of the pros and cons and what to do in this situation. So now let's talk about, as for the market itself as a whole, what does this mean for you as a buyer, as a seller, or if you want to be a smart, savvy homeowner to just kind of know where we're at? Let's take a look. For buyers, November's numbers point to a market where they have more leverage, more time, and more room to negotiate, especially on homes that have been sitting on the market or are overpriced. The advantage right now isn't waiting for prices to fall, it's being able to walk away from a home that just doesn't make sense. And for sellers, homes are still selling, but buyers are clearly pushing back on price and value, which shows up in longer days on market and a declining list to close price ratio. This market really rewards sellers who price and position correctly from the start and exposes those who don't. And for homeowners, what November shows is a market that's normalizing. Slower, more selective, and less forgiving of overpricing, but still active. And understanding how buyers are behaving now gives you a clearer picture of what selling would look like in the next 6 to 12 months or whenever you do plan to sell down the road. If you have any specific questions about how these market stats in November can impact you, whether you're buying, selling, or just planning ahead, feel free to reach out anytime. I'm happy to share the insights so that you can make an informed decision that's right for you. And be sure to follow on with me for more information just like this, including my Ione Market update that I'll post for December of 2025 coming up next month. See you then.